I think the best way to learn is through problem solving. And I think if you show the technique before they've discovered that problem, the learning is sort of held back. So I like the idea of using kids style games to show them a problem and then use the techniques to fix the problems they've just discovered. I think that's the best way to learn.
Can you give an example of a problem to show them before you give them the techniques? Like, what are we talking about?
All right, so say you wanted to teach posture in wrestling. You could create a game where one guy, the game might be get to a leg or get to two legs, control the leg, like super simple. But the rules, the constraint would be one guy is forced to keep an upright posture and one guy is forced, well, not forced, but he's allowed to keep a bent at the hips, lower posture. And obviously within that constraint, the guy with the better posture is going to have more success. He's going to have a better posture to secure a leg or secure both legs, and therefore you've demonstrated the flaws of bad posture without having to explain it to them before they really tested that out.
Okay, and then the result of that, you would realize that the bent over posture is better.
Yeah, you have that aha moment rather than just being having it spoken to you.
You wrote, Craig, I'm a big fan of constraint-based learning, I guess was what you're talking about. I love presenting beginners with a problem before the solution. Like here, attempt to hold side control with no cues on how. Then I see how the guy got out and addressed issue by issue, crossface and hip control and so on. Okay, so what are some other examples, like side control?
Yeah, that would be an excellent one. Side control. Like teacher, like obviously we say, oh, you secure a crossface so they can't turn into you. Much easier to have them try to hold someone down without explaining what a crossface is and then use that technique to address the problem they've just encountered. So I think you could do that with a lot of areas of jiu-jitsu, like even more advanced, say 50-50, obviously a mirrored position where you both have access to each other's heels. Most people will stall out in that position and keep their feet crossed. I think a great constraint for both of them, you can't cross your feet. Now you have to learn how to slip the heel hook when they expose it and how to safely re-attack of your own. So the constraint is you can't be too defensive in that position. And I think the rate of learning increases.
Why do you think the rate of learning increases? Like, why do you think that works?
Because you encounter more problems. Say in that situation, they're going to get your heel a lot more in whatever period of time you allocate the drill for than if the legs are crossed. I don't think the hard part's splitting the legs to get to the submission. I think the hard part's practicing control while they're trying to slip it at a later stage, and then obviously trying to slip your heel when you're in more danger also makes you more comfortable in that bad position if you're used to doing it with open legs.
Yeah, I think that probably that style of teaching forces people to focus on, because it's so easy to fall into focusing on like memorizing a particular details of a technique without thinking like, why the hell does this even work? And exactly. if you don't have that, you get to focus on like, from like, as cliche as it sounds, from first principles, like how the hell did I get out of this? Like, why does this even work? Why does wrestling work? Why do you have a bent over posture? You get those, like, start to ask those kinds of questions, which is kind of interesting because it's not obvious to me that bent over posture is the right posture for jiu-jitsu, right? I'm confused actually about that. I don't know.
About the correct posture?
Yeah, for jiu-jitsu. Like, what's the right answer?
I think bent over posture is still good for jiu-jitsu.
Even with the judo and all that. Like, why are so many jiu-jitsu people, like, at a high level, the posture is higher up?
Well, I think wrestling posture is just a bit too low because it's not necessary, right? If wrestlers are like low enough to the ground where your hands can touch the mat, but in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of a mix between like wrestling and judo or Greco-Roman wrestling. So I think it's just a bit more lax, and it's bent over, but it's not upright, and it's also not super low.